Hey everyone, it's Amalu. At the end of the last video, I hinted that this was going to be Legend of Zelda themed, and I'm making good on that promise. I've been so hyped for Tears of the Kingdom lately, and I really wanted to do something relating to Breath of the Wild. So I decided for this project I wanted to redesign, or I guess make a design for the champions of old. And when I say champions, I don't mean like Mipha, Urbosa, Daruk, and Revali. I'm talking about the champions 10,000 years ago that you see briefly on the tapestry when Impa's telling you about the story of 10,000 years ago. So yeah, I've been looking at the tapestry that Impa shows you, and specifically looking at the champions on it, and I realized that when you look close at them, even though they're kind of impressionistic shapes, you can actually see elements of the races they're supposed to represent. So I thought, why not translate those elements into like an actual design? And I thought it would be a cool way to stretch my abilities because, I don't know, the only human looking one is the Gerudo. So yeah, I thought this would be fun. So we're gonna start with the Rito. Okay, just a kind of quick side note before we actually jump in, but I'm probably not gonna update some of the fashion too much. I'm definitely not going to just make a cookie cutter, they wear the exact same thing as the champions, but I think even though it's 10,000 years ago, Hyrule progresses really differently because you see what they're wearing like in the very first game chronologically in Skyward Sword, and it's not that much different from Breath of the Wild, even though that's thousands and thousands of years later. So to keep things more simple, I'm just gonna base their fashions off of the fashions we see in Breath of the Wild. So when I actually started designing the Rito, I decided that I wanted to make her pose and all of the poses of the next champions following her to kind of match what they're doing on the tapestry. And for this it's a little bit difficult because her arms, I guess, are kind of wiggly, and I don't think I got it perfectly, but I tried to mimic that one arm is like out and bent and one arm is bent upwards, and then just kind of to mimic the whole silhouette of the look. Also, another thing I decided is that I wanted to keep their color scheme, I guess, similar to the color that is featured for their respective divine beasts. You can see on the tapestry that the Rito is mostly green, so I decided that I should make this Rito be a type of green bird because I love how Revali is kind of based off of a falcon and Cass is kind of based off a parrot, and you know, like the leader is based off an owl, and I wanted to do kind of something similar with this champion instead of just being like a generic bird. So I looked at a lot of different green birds until I found one that I thought probably would fit the direction I was thinking for her, and it's called a glistening green tanager. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I'll put up the image of it on the screen. Basically, these birds are small and green, and they live in kind of more rainforest, I guess, biomes. I'm thinking Minecraft now, but they live in Colombia and Ecuador, and there are a few characteristics about these birds that kind of influenced the direction I took with maybe what her personality would be, but I'll get into that more a bit later. So another part of her design that I wanted to incorporate is that long, skinny thing sticking out of the back of the original drawing's head. So I kind of interpreted that as like, well, Revali has a bunch of braids at the back of his head, and you see a bunch of Rito have like hair or like feathers back there, so I decided I would interpret this as like one long, really skinny feather that's maybe like wrapped up in some kind of design. But yeah, then I moved on to more of her clothes. Since her shoulder is green in the original silhouette, I'm just gonna say on the tapestry from now on, I decided that that's where she should have a pauldron or shoulder armor thing. And I based it off the kind of pauldrons that you see people like Revali and Teba and all the soldiers wearing in Breath of the Wild. And I mean, I kind of hinted at this before, but I did decide that this champion is going to be female, and I thought since, you know, Revali was a male in Breath of the Wild, maybe I should just switch it. And I do the same thing for the Zora, since the Gerudo and the Goron are kind of set in stone. So yeah, I tried to give her a outfit that like fit with what a lot of the Rito women wore, but also kind of made her look more like a warrior. So she kind of has, I guess, this layered top and layered skirt thing They're supposed to be layered to like give more protection, but also I think to look a little bit more like feathers. I thought that was just a fun design choice. And then the pendant like on the top, on her top, and then also on her belt are ones that I guess copied the design of things that I saw lots of Ritos wearing in some of the reference pictures I looked at. I feel like I should also mention here that I didn't really have a mood board this time. I just kind of collected a bunch of pictures of the Rito and also the bird I wanted to base her off of, and just kind of use them as my reference images. And honestly, even though she was like a bird person, and I usually just draw humans, she was not as hard to draw as I thought she'd be. Like, especially her wings. I think once I just figured out what the shape was, it was easy for me to replicate it. And then I just had to add a little bit of, I guess, feather fluff to it. Oh, I also didn't mention this before, but I also made her wear like that leather, I don't even know what it is. I always assumed it was armor to protect, like, since birds are kind of vulnerable in the stomach, I mean most animals are, just to protect her weak stomach, and it's just kind of an armor thing, so that adds to her being a warrior. One thing I did struggle with her being a Rito though was the tail. I think you can see that I try so many times to like make the shape right, and eventually I settled on something I kind of liked. I'll also mention that even though all the champions in Breath of the Wild wear like the bright blue sashes, and that shows that they're like the champion, I didn't include it in these designs because if you know way too much about Zelda lore like I do, you know that Princess Zelda in Breath of the Wild actually made those for the champions. And since she's not around in this era, I don't think they would wear them. I think they just wear normal clothes. Maybe they had something else, but it doesn't exist in my AU. Okay, and I feel like now I should mention, for the speed paint, there's a lot of chunks of video missing, and for once it's not because my program was glitching out. It's just because my brain malfunctioned and I forgot to hit record for most of the line art, and then like 90% of the coloring process. I think I'd gotten up to use the bathroom, so I'd paused the video and then just never hit play, and didn't realize it until I was almost done with the coloring, so yeah, there's a giant chunk missing, but I'm sorry in advance. But yeah, since she's a green bird, she has to have the green design, and I didn't go exactly with the hue of the bird. I tried to make it a little bit in between what the bird is actually colored like and what the tapestry's colors are. Originally, you can see that I kind of went with this magenta and purple color scheme for her clothes. I thought that it kind of clashed a little bit too much with the tapestry, so I went more with these kind of greenish blue colors, just to fit inside the color scheme a bit better. I also decided that even though she is based off this very specific bird, I was going to make like the coloring on her wings and her tail, so like the black and white tips, I was going to make that a little bit more in line with the Rito. The actual species of the bird doesn't have that, but I wanted her to be recognizable as a Rito. I also played around a bit with some light pinks and purples. I think I incorporate them on like her pauldron and her chest jewel thing. Yeah, and I think most of the designs are just a very light pink. I also originally went with this zigzagged pattern on her skirt, and then I realized it looked too much like a Gerudo pattern, so I changed it to kind of this diamond square thing. I don't really know how to describe it. I just thought it looked a little less Gerudo-y, but that's just me. But yeah, for her personality, I was kind of thinking she's probably the youngest out of all the champions. I know, it's kind of funny. I feel like she fits kind of like the self-insert Mary Sue thing, like when I describe her, but I think she's the youngest of the champions. She's probably like just a very talented teenager, but because she's kind of younger, she's a little bit more naive and trusting, so that can get her into trouble. I also based some of her personality and character traits off of the bird she's based off, the glistening green tanagers. So she's very social. She loves meeting new people and just getting to know them. So she's a good team player when she can focus enough. And I decided that I kind of wanted all of the champions to have, you know how all the champions in Breath of the Wild have abilities. And I wanted to copy that over into the 10,000 years ago version, but with different powers, because it would just be lame to copy them again. So for her, I thought it would fit if she could fly really fast, and maybe she'd have a little bit of control over the wind to always blow in a right way to give her a speed boost whenever she's flying. I thought that would fit just because the type of bird she's based off is small, but it's really fast, and it's described as acrobatic. So yeah, she's really fast, she's really nimble. She's also really observant, so she can notice small details that other people would normally miss, even if she's zipping by really fast. I think, like Rivali, she probably has this hunger to prove herself, but not in his kind of competitive way to show that he's the best. I think she just wants to prove that she is just as capable as any of the other champions, despite her age. But yeah, I see her as kind of more the energetic. Sometimes her head is a little bit lost in the clouds, but she really is a good team player and formidable warrior. So in the end, I think for my first non-human character that I've drawn here so far, I think she turned out really good. I'm surprised with how well I was able to pull this off, despite my lack of experience. Originally I was going to design her and the Goron in the same video, but when I started editing them together, it wound up being 45 minutes long or something crazy like that. So I decided I would split them up into 2 videos because I think 2 shorter videos are better than 1 really long video. But I guess that means that the Goron video should be coming out pretty soon. Also, I didn't really think up of a good name for her, so if you have any suggestions for her, and I guess subsequently any of the following champions, you can put them in the comments below. And I think maybe at the end of this series I'll reveal what I want to name all the champions. But yeah, thanks for watching. And I'm excited to keep doing more of these, so stick around. I think it's going to be fun. See ya!